guys, so today I'm here with Banba, my veiled chameleon, and I'm going to be going all over veiled chameleon care and just things that you should know about veiled chameleons before buying one. So veiled chameleons are one of the most common chameleons that you'll find in the pet trade. You can see them at Petco and PetSmart, all of those stores. Again, I wouldn't recommend buying from these stores just because you don't know the quality animal that you're going to get, and there's a good chance that it could be sick and it's just not going to work out well in the end. So I would always recommend looking for breeders or very good reptile shops that may be local to you because you'll find the best quality animals there. And I actually got Banba, my veiled chameleon, from Curious Creatures in Chicago. Veiled chameleons are known to be the feistiest chameleons of all of them. They have the most attitude. They typically don't handling very well, but Banba, as you can see, has tamed down. I made a video all about how I tamed him down and how you can work with your chameleon as well, but there's always a chance that it's going to be difficult, and Banba still has his sassy days, so it's important to keep in mind that this is an animal you aren't really going to be handling much, and they do have a lot of attitude. This is a full-grown veiled chameleon, and he's a male. You can tell he's a male because of the huge crown on top of his head, and the males tend to get a little bit more colorful than the females. They are pretty big chameleons, so that's another thing to keep in mind, especially because they're going to need a larger enclosure. So when it comes to the enclosure for a veiled chameleon, they actually do best in screen enclosures that have a lot of ventilation. So that's what I keep Banba in, and they also require something with a lot of height. These animals are arboreal, which means that they live up in the trees, so they love to climb. They are hardly ever on the ground, and in fact, if your chameleon does happen to be on the ground a lot, there's a good chance that there may be something wrong and that he's injured or sick. So you do want to have a lot of branches and leaves and things for your chameleon to climb on. If you have a baby, you can use a smaller enclosure temporarily, but these guys grow very, very fast, and Banba was pretty much full grown within 4 months. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. You're going to need a large enclosure very quickly. If you do have a baby, it's important to supply a ton of foliage. They can get very stressed out, and chameleons, the number one thing you want to avoid is their stress levels because that can make them sick. So you want to be careful and make sure that you have a lot of foliage in your enclosure, especially for those babies. That way they can hide and feel more secure. When you're adding the foliage, you can use a lot of real plants if you want. You want to make sure that the reptile's safe, there aren't any pesticides on them. Josh's Frogs is a great reference. I would check out. You can go to their shop. They sell the plants online and ship it to you, and I've done it many times and it worked out very well. You can literally click on the type of animal that you have, and there's a whole list on plants that you can use for veiled chameleons. And also, you can use my coupon code if you buy anything from them and get 15% off if you use Reptilian Garden for the coupon code. You could also use fake plants too. You just want to make sure that there aren't any exposed wires or anything. So that's just another thing to keep in mind for these guys. So when it comes to the humidity, they do have a very highly ventilated enclosure, but you do want to be misting their enclosure down as much as you can throughout the day, at least 3 times a day. Basically you want to do this because veiled chameleons do not drink from water bowls. That's a huge thing to keep in mind. Many people may not realize and just put a water bowl in with these guys and hope that they'll be fine. They won't drink from it, and that can cause them to die. So by spraying the enclosure, you want to make sure that all of the leaves surrounding them are all nice and wet, so that way they can lick that off and hydrate themselves, because that's the only way that they'll be getting hydration other than the food that they eat. So when it comes to their diet, they are insectivores, but veiled chameleons in particular are known to eat vegetation. And a lot of people have been commenting and being a little unsure of my methods, but if you look it up online, they do eat vegetation, and I offer salads for Banba at least twice a week. And you want to do that because it will hydrate them, and it will also offer more vitamins and nutrients to their diet. And as you can see, Banba's looking amazing. He's very, very healthy. And that's how I do that. It's my secret trick. So you want to use the same type of salads and vegetables that you would be using for veiled chameleons. Make sure that they're reptile safe. You don't want anything with a lot of acidity. Avoid kale. Romaine lettuce is okay, but it's basically just to hydrate them. Very leafy greens like collard greens or chard, those are great. just anything that's very dark leafy green. So my trick is I actually put the salad on the bottom. I use a tiny little bowl of food that I put in for him every day, and I'll put the salad on the bottom and then the insects on top of it because he is very inclined to go eat those insects, and while they stick their tongue out to go eat, it will attach itself to the vegetation as well and he'll end up eating it. So the insects that I provide for Banba are primarily dubia roaches, crickets, superworms, waxworms. Hornworms are his absolute favorite. They're so healthy and nutritious, and they're also very great for hydration as well. You want to make sure that when you're feeding your veiled chameleon, you're also dusting in calcium and D3, and then at least twice a month you want to be using a multivitamin and switching it out and dusting their food with the multivitamin as well. Then with handleability, my one trick that I use to taming down Banba is by hand feeding. The more you hand feed your veiled chameleon, the more that they're gonna associate you with food and not a threat. So that's the way to go for it. You want to put the cricket as far out on your arm as you possibly can, so that way they have to step onto you to go eat that cricket. Usually once they're out of their enclosure, they're totally fine and chill, just like Banba. A lot of the times he actually likes to come out on his own, and he'll skip the food and just come out on my arm just to come hang out. So for veiled chameleons and their lighting, you can keep them outside if you're in a very nice area such as like Florida. They do need a lot of sunlight, and it works very well if you keep them outdoors, but a lot of people keeping them in captivity are going to be keeping them indoors, and because of that you're going to need special lighting. So veiled chameleons do need UVB full spectrum lighting, and they are tropical species, so you do want a 5.0, and I use the very long UVBs, not the little spiral ones, because the long ones will reach down farther into the enclosure to give them that fully like spectrum lighting that they need. And it won't be able to do that if you have a spiral, and they have very tall enclosures, so you want it to be able to go down as far as it possibly can to make sure that they're getting that UVB that they need. Otherwise they can get very sick, get metabolic bone disease, and die. So obviously you want to avoid that, so make sure you're getting them a very good UVB source, and you're going to want to switch that out every 6 months as well, because they do tend to, they'll still light up and you'll think it's fine, but the UVB rays aren't as strong as they were before. So every 6 months it's good to switch them out and give them fresh UVB. Veiled chameleons are also going to require heat. You do want a hot spot of 90 degrees for these guys, and again with a tall enclosure they can go all the way up to the heat and bask when they need to, and if they get too hot they can go all the way to the bottom and cool down and thermoregulate throughout their enclosure. That's another reason you want a really large tall enclosure for these guys. You don't want any lights at nighttime for veiled chameleons. That will stress them out, and they can actually tolerate a huge drop at night in temperature. I believe they can go down to like 45 degrees, but obviously you're going to want to avoid that. Don't go down that low at nighttime, but definitely a little cooling off period at night is normal for them, and that's what's perfect for them. Another thing that I would like to talk about with the misting is that if you aren't home to spray them, there are misting systems. You can literally set it on a timer and they'll go off and spray the enclosure. Those work really, really well, and they're really cheap too, I believe. They aren't too expensive, so definitely something to look into if you want a chameleon but you're working throughout the day and you're worried that they aren't going to have any water to hydrate themselves. That's something to look into. So I hope that this was helpful. Leave a comment, let me know if you have any questions. I would love to help out. I'm actually writing a book on veiled chameleons right now, going over all of the information that I won't be covering in this video. So again, just let me know what you guys think. I hope that you enjoyed Banba, and have a wonderful day. So this is Banba's enclosure. I believe it is 4 feet tall. It is very, very tall compared to like me just standing next to it. And we'll just go ahead and open it up and check on him. So there he is. And he's just basking. Again, he has his heat. He has a heat fixture right over here. And then here's the long UVB, the 5.0. And there it is. He loves to just go up there and bask all day, and then he'll go around and hunt for food. He can go to the bottom to thermoregulate, and that's about it. And I'd like to add more plants to this. He has a pretty good amount and he's pretty happy. He's not very stressed out and he feels secure in here, but I may just add more just to make it look better. But that's pretty much everything that I have right now, and I usually put his little cup of food right in here. It fits perfectly. It's like the best little thing. Sometimes he knocks it over, but for the most part it stays in place, and that's where he eats other than me hand feeding him.